The case of Anna Moriah Wilson is a heartbreaking story of ambition, jealousy, and senseless loss that shook the cycling world and captured media attention across the United States and beyond. Anna Moriah Wilson, better known as Mo, was a rising star in the gravel cycling scene. Born on May 18, 1996, in Littleton, New Hampshire, Wilson grew up in Kirby, Vermont, in a family deeply rooted in outdoor and ski culture. Her parents, Eric and Karen Wilson, were both former members of the U.S. ski team, which heavily influenced her upbringing in a sports-oriented environment. Moriah was the youngest sibling, with an older brother, Matthew Wilson. From an early age, Wilson showed a passion for sports and participated in various athletic activities. She attended Burke Mountain Academy, a renowned preparatory school known for its strong focus on skiing and outdoor sports. At Burke Academy, she excelled in multiple sports, including cycling, alpine skiing, and soccer, earning accolades in each discipline. Her dedication and talent made her a compassionate friend and supportive teammate, qualities that endeared her to many in her community. Wilson grew up in an environment that fostered her love for outdoor sports. The Kingdom Trails area, known for its skiing and mountain biking opportunities, was her playground. This environment laid the foundation for her later career and passion for cycling. After graduating from Burke Mountain Academy in 2014, Wilson attended Dartmouth College, where she studied engineering. During her time at Dartmouth, she continued her love of sports and became a member of the alpine ski racing team. Her family noted that skiing was a childhood dream for her, which she fulfilled while simultaneously developing her cycling skills. Wilson had hoped to make the U.S. ski team, but knee injuries eventually ended her skiing career. That's when she switched to cycling. She had initially used cycling as a method of rehabilitation and rebuilding her strength. What was fascinating is that after graduating from Dartmouth, she went to her mother and said, "Hey Mom, I think I want to become a professional cyclist." After graduating from Dartmouth in 2019, Wilson worked as a demand planner for Specialized, a company focused on bicycle products. However, her true passion lay in cycling, and she transitioned to professional gravel cycling. Gravel racing, a relatively new and rapidly growing discipline, combines elements of road cycling, cyclocross, and mountain biking, often taking place on unpaved roads and trails. Wilson quickly gained recognition in this field and became known as one of the best female participants in the sport. Wilson told the podcast, "We Got to Hang Out," that she wanted to do much more than just win races. "How can I inspire people? How can I give back to the cycling community? How can I bring more people into the sport? How can I make it more inclusive? I want to find purpose in cycling that goes far beyond the result." Wilson's influence extended beyond her athletic achievements. She was deeply rooted in her community and known for her positive attitude and encouragement of others. Friends and teammates described her as a source of inspiration, especially during difficult times. For example, Danica Ashnolt, a close friend, remembered how Wilson supported her during injury recovery, highlighting her caring nature. Wilson's life seemed to be going perfectly. She had just quit her job at Specialized Bicycle Components to pursue her cycling career full-time. She had signed sponsorship deals and was planning to race in Europe. Her future looked promising. However, on May 11, 2022, Wilson's life came to a tragic end. That evening, she was found dead in an apartment in Austin, Texas. She was there visiting to participate in an upcoming race. The investigation revealed that Wilson had been shot multiple times. The news of Wilson's death spread like wildfire through the cycling community and beyond. Friends, family, and fans were shocked and mourned the loss of such a young and promising talent. Let's now examine the events of this tragic day and the subsequent investigation in more detail. On the evening of May 11, 2022, professional cyclist Anna Moriah "Mo" Wilson was staying at her friend Kaitlin Cash's apartment in Austin, Texas. She was in town for a gravel race. At around 8:36 p.m., Wilson returned to the apartment, and Cash's electronic door lock informed her of Wilson's arrival. Earlier that day, Wilson had been swimming at Deep Eddy Pool and had dinner with fellow cyclist Colin Strickland. She had a brief romantic relationship with Strickland the previous fall when he was separated from his girlfriend, Kaitlin Armstrong. Strickland dropped Wilson off at Cash's apartment that evening, but didn't go inside. At around 9:56 p.m., Cash returned home and found Wilson bleeding and unconscious on the bathroom floor. Cash called emergency services and attempted CPR, but Wilson had already succumbed to her injuries. When police arrived, they found several shell casings in the apartment. Wilson's bicycle was discovered in the bushes near the apartment. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's camera showed a black Jeep SUV passing by just 1 minute after Wilson's arrival at the apartment. The Travis County medical examiner later determined that Wilson died from multiple gunshot wounds, including 2 to the head and 1 to the chest. The autopsy revealed that the shots were fired after she was already lying supine on the ground, indicating that Wilson was likely shot while lying on the floor. Police questioned Strickland the next morning and noticed a black Jeep SUV in his driveway, similar to the vehicle seen in the surveillance footage. Investigators determined that the Jeep was registered to Kaitlin Armstrong, Strickland's partner. Armstrong was called in for questioning but provided no explanation. However, officers observed her turning her head and rolling her eyes in an angry manner when asked about Wilson's relationship with Strickland. Armstrong was initially released due to a technicality, but police soon obtained an arrest warrant charging her with first-degree murder, based on ballistic evidence linking her to the crime. By this time, Armstrong had already fled the country. The investigation quickly focused on Kaitlin Armstrong as the primary suspect. Kaitlin Armstrong is a 35-year-old yoga instructor and real estate agent from Austin, Texas. She had been in an on-off relationship with Colin Strickland for 2.5 years, which included several separations. In October 2021, during a brief separation from Armstrong, Strickland had a brief romantic relationship with Wilson. Prosecutors alleged that Armstrong had tracked Wilson's location using the Strava fitness app, and that her black Jeep SUV was seen near the apartment at the time of the crime. After being questioned by police, Armstrong sold her Jeep for cash, boarded a plane from Austin to New York City, and then flew to Costa Rica using her sister's passport. In Costa Rica, she reportedly taught yoga, underwent cosmetic surgery to alter her appearance, and cut and dyed her hair to avoid recognition. Armstrong was on the run for 43 days until U.S. Marshals arrested her at a beach hostel in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica. Let's now examine the hunt for Kaitlin Armstrong in detail. After the arrest warrant was issued, the U.S. Marshals Lone Star Fugitive Task Force took over the hunt for Armstrong. They tracked her to a remote campsite in upstate New York, where her sister Christine had been staying, but Armstrong had already fled. In June 2022, a month after Armstrong's disappearance, Deputy U.S. Marshals Damian Fernandez and Emir Perez traveled to Costa Rica. They suspected Armstrong had used her sister's passport to flee the country. The U.S. Marshals placed ads for a yoga instructor in Costa Rica, hoping Armstrong's love for yoga would lead them to her. After almost a week of searching, they got a breakthrough when they learned that Christy Armstrong had flown from Newark to Costa Rica around the same time as Kaitlin. Marshals Fernandez and Perez arrived in Santa Teresa after nightfall. We get there, and he starts walking down a main strip that's there, like the road down the only road in that town, one of the marshals recalls. And he sees a girl and says, "You know, that looks just like her." Well, a few minutes later we see another one, and it's late at night, and we're thinking, "Oh man, that's two." And then there's another one. While the marshals tried to find Armstrong, they even had one of their female agents attend yoga classes to see if they could spot Armstrong. The agent actually attended 3 different classes for them. They also made connections with locals. Oh yeah, we made friends with people there who would send us pictures. "Look, I think I saw her yesterday in this restaurant, and she's in the background of a photo I took." Things like that. Indeed, people had seen Armstrong at local places in Santa Teresa, but they didn't know who she was. Armstrong was hiding in plain sight and using various names. She had multiple names. "Yes," says one of the investigators. "She came in as Beth." "It wasn't Beth. Ari. Ari. Right. So she came in as Ari." Greg Haber, an American from the New York area who owns a restaurant called Cook's Smokehouse and Bar in Santa Teresa, remembers Armstrong. Ari came in, introduced herself as a yoga teacher, which is basically what everyone else is down here. "Hey, I moved down here, teaching yoga down the street." And that was it. Haber says he noticed something different about her one day. "I saw her on the beach. I walk my dog every evening for sunset on the beach. And you walk through and see the bandage on her face. It's like, what happened?" She's like, surfboard hit me in the face." It's like, well, that happens to everyone, right? At least once. So you wouldn't even question that story here. You see people like that all the time. It turned out that this bandage would later become a significant part of this story, and one of the reasons why the marshals say Armstrong was so hard to find. Finally, they decided on one last tactic. They turned to a local Facebook page. "We decided to put up an ad for a yoga teacher and see what would happen," one of the marshals explains. "That's the equivalent to Craigslist, yeah, pretty much exactly. And just say, 'Hey, we're this hostel. We're looking for a yoga teacher. As soon as possible, please contact us at this number.'" But even after almost a week of searching, that didn't seem to be working. Sunday, we decided, we haven't gotten any response to anything. We're burned out. So Sunday, we're like, okay, we're done. None of them have panned out. So we're going back to San Jose. Back in San Jose, the marshals were preparing to fly home when suddenly, we got a bite. Someone who identified themselves as a yoga instructor and said they wanted to meet us at a specific hostel. And we said, this is our chance. Deputy Marshals Perez and Fernandez rushed back to Santa Teresa, just ahead of a tropical storm. Police Lieutenant Juan Carlos Solano and his team assisted the marshals in their search for Kaitlin Armstrong. They monitored a hostel called Don John's, where the yoga instructor who had responded to the online ad was believed to be staying. It was now time for the marshals to make their move. They decided that Deputy Marshal Perez would approach the woman alone. They didn't want to spook her. He would pretend to be a tourist and try to get a really good look at her face. I went in and saw 2 people who were sitting there at a table on the left. Perez recalls, "As soon as I came in," he says, "one was a female. She looked like Kaitlin, but not 100%. So I thought, well, how can I approach her or get close enough where I start asking questions without her suspecting anything? So I decided I would speak to her in Spanish." She goes to use her phone for Google Translate, and then I got a little closer because I saw she was trying to get to Google Translate on her phone, and she held it up to me, and I got even closer, and I noticed she had a bandage on her nose, and possibly her lips were swollen. And I saw her eyes. The eyes are exactly the same ones I saw in the picture. And that's her, 100%. He gets in the car and says, "That's her. She's in there." Local police moved in to make the actual arrest, and soon the marshals discovered why Armstrong had been so hard to find. She had undergone cosmetic surgery. Upon arrival in Santa Teresa, they found a receipt at the hospital. The receipt was for cosmetic surgery. In these before and after photos, you can see that Armstrong changed the shape of her nose. The deputy marshals said their female agent, the woman they had sent to yoga classes trying to find Armstrong, told them Armstrong's new appearance would have fooled her. And she told me, "I think if I had encountered her in the yoga studio, I probably wouldn't have recognized her." The marshals brought Armstrong back to Texas, where she was charged and incarcerated. However, just weeks before she was set to stand trial for the murder of Moriah Wilson, Kaitlin Armstrong attempted to escape again. On October 11, 2022, while being transported from a medical facility, Armstrong attempted to flee, resulting in additional charges against her. This incident was ruled admissible in the trial, further complicating her defense. The trial against Kaitlin Armstrong began on October 30, 2022 in Austin. The jury consisted of 12 members, including 8 women and 6 men. The selection process was thorough due to the high media attention the case had received. In opening statements, the prosecution, led by Deputy District Attorneys Guillermo Gonzalez, Ricky Jones, and Gene Sullivan, presented their case. They argued that Armstrong's jealousy over Wilson's relationship with Colin Strickland had motivated the murder. The defense, represented by Jeffrey Puryear, Rick Kofer, and Elizabeth Duggan, claimed that the evidence was circumstantial and did not conclusively link Armstrong to the crime. The prosecution presented a variety of evidence, including digital traces. Phone records and GPS data were analyzed to create a timeline of events leading up to the murder. The evidence showed that Armstrong's phone was active near the crime scene at the time of the murder. Friends of Armstrong testified that she had made statements about Wilson, including claiming she wanted to kill her. Additionally, evidence was presented that Armstrong had purchased ammunition and practiced shooting before the murder. DNA and ballistic experts provided testimony linking Armstrong to the crime, although the defense argued that the evidence was not conclusive. On the 8th day of the trial, Samantha Perkins, DNA supervisor from the Texas Department of Public Safety, testified about DNA evidence collected from the crime scene. DNA swabs taken from Wilson's bicycle and from a weapon linked to Armstrong showed both Armstrong's and Strickland's DNA on the firearm. Notably, Wilson's and Cash's DNA was absent from the weapon, suggesting they hadn't handled it. Further analysis revealed that both Armstrong's and Wilson's DNA was found on Wilson's bicycle, which was discovered near the crime scene. This evidence was crucial in establishing a connection between Armstrong and the victim. The prosecution presented evidence that Armstrong owned the firearm used in the murder. Ballistic experts testified that the bullets recovered from Wilson's body matched the weapon in Armstrong's possession. This forensic evidence directly linked Armstrong to the weapon used in the crime. Kaitlin Cash, the friend with whom Wilson was staying, provided crucial testimony about discovering Wilson's body and the events leading up to that moment. Her account helped establish the timeline and context for the murder. Armstrong's defense team argued that the evidence presented was largely circumstantial and did not conclusively place her at the scene. They highlighted that the prosecution couldn't conclusively prove she was the one driving the Jeep or using the phone at critical times. The prosecution also introduced evidence of Armstrong's attempted escape from custody in October 2022, demonstrating her awareness of the charges against her and her desire to evade legal consequences. After a 2-week trial that included extensive witness testimony and evidence presentations, the jury deliberated for just over 2 hours, before reaching a verdict. On November 16, 2022, the jury found Kaitlin Armstrong guilty of first-degree murder in the death of Anna Moriah Wilson. The prosecution's case, supported by digital evidence and witness testimony, proved compelling enough to secure a conviction. The following day, Armstrong was sentenced to 90 years in prison, with the jury also imposing a $10,000 fine. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime and the emotional impact on Wilson's family and the cycling community. The trial and conviction of Kaitlin Armstrong highlighted the complexity of love triangles and jealousy, as well as the challenges law enforcement faces in proving circumstantial cases. The case received national attention not only for the tragic loss of a talented athlete, but also for the dramatic elements surrounding the investigation and trial, including Armstrong's escape attempt and subsequent manhunt. Wilson's family and friends continued to advocate for her legacy, emphasizing the importance of mental health awareness and support within the athletic community, while the cycling world mourned the loss of a promising talent. The aftermath of Anna Moriah Wilson's tragic murder on May 11, 2022, led to significant legal actions taken by her family against Kaitlin Armstrong, the convicted murderer. The Wilson family sought justice not only through the criminal trial, but also through civil lawsuits aimed at securing compensation for their loss and preventing Armstrong from profiting from her actions. On May 6, 2023, Karen and Eric Wilson, Anna Moriah Wilson's parents, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Kaitlin Armstrong in the 200th District Court in Travis County, Texas. The lawsuit sought over $1 million in damages, including compensation for the emotional pain and suffering caused by their daughter's death. Armstrong did not respond to the lawsuit or appear in court, resulting in a default judgment on June 17, 2023. Judge Daniela DeSeta-Little ruled in favor of the Wilsons and ordered Armstrong to pay $15 million in damages. The $15 million judgment included $5 million each for Karen and Eric Wilson for wrongful death damages, reflecting the mental anguish, emotional pain, torment, and suffering caused by their daughter's murder. Additionally, $2.5 million each were awarded as exemplary damages, intended to deter Armstrong from similar future actions and serve as a punitive measure for her conduct. The lawsuit accused Armstrong of negligently and wrongfully handling her firearm, resulting in Wilson's death. It alleged that Armstrong acted recklessly and in violation of laws intended to protect individuals from harm. In affidavits filed as part of the lawsuit, both Karen and Eric Wilson described the profound emotional impact their daughter's death had on their lives. Karen Wilson described feeling like she could fill an ocean with tears, illustrating the deep grief and change in her daily life since the tragedy. Eric Wilson expressed concerns for their son, Matt, and worried about the impact of losing his sister. A key motivation behind the lawsuit was to prevent Armstrong from profiting from her crime. The Wilson family aimed to ensure that if Armstrong were to receive any financial benefits, such as through a potential book deal or media appearances, they would be entitled to those funds. Attorney Randy Howry emphasized that the family wanted to stand in front of any financial advantage that might be granted to Armstrong. Following the wrongful death lawsuit, the Wilson family filed an additional lawsuit against Armstrong, her mother, sister, and ex-boyfriend Colin Strickland, alleging fraudulent transfers of Armstrong's assets to avoid paying damages. This lawsuit claimed that Armstrong had transferred properties and emptied bank accounts shortly after the wrongful death lawsuit was filed, suggesting intent to hinder the Wilsons' ability to collect awarded damages. The wrongful death lawsuit and its aftermath have highlighted the ongoing emotional struggles of the Wilson family. They have expressed that no amount of money can replace their daughter, but that the lawsuit is a step toward justice and accountability for Armstrong's actions. In memory of their daughter, the Wilson family has also established the Moriah Wilson Foundation, which aims to support youth organizations that promote cycling and outdoor activities. This initiative demonstrates their commitment to honoring Moriah's legacy and ensuring her passion for sports continues to inspire others. The fraudulent transfer lawsuit, filed following the wrongful death lawsuit, represents another significant legal step by the Wilson family. Here are the main points of this lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed in July 2022, shortly after the Wilson family received a $15 million default judgment in the wrongful death lawsuit against Armstrong. The defendants named were Kaitlin Armstrong, her mother Sharon Armstrong, her sister Christine Armstrong, and her ex-boyfriend Colin Strickland. The Wilson family alleged that these individuals were involved in fraudulent transactions to protect Armstrong's assets from Wilson family claims. The lawsuit accused the defendants of transferring most, if not all, of Armstrong's assets during the ongoing criminal and civil proceedings to her family members. It specifically highlighted that these transfers were made with the intent to hinder, delay, or defraud the Wilson family. The lawsuit detailed 3 properties previously owned by Armstrong, 2 properties in Austin. The deeds for these properties were transferred to either her mother or sister. The lawsuit alleged these properties had been sold since Wilson's murder. A property in Lockhart. This property was jointly owned by Armstrong and Colin Strickland. The lawsuit alleged Armstrong's ownership interest was transferred to her sister, who then transferred it to Strickland, effectively constituting a sale. The lawsuit also pointed to a Chase bank account in Armstrong's name that contained approximately $78,000. This account was allegedly reduced to just $10 3 days after the Wilson family filed their wrongful death lawsuit. The Wilsons allege that Christine Armstrong facilitated this transfer by acting as a power of attorney for Kaitlin. The Wilson family sought over $1 million in this lawsuit and aimed to recover the value of assets they believed were fraudulently transferred. They requested a jury trial to determine the final amount owed. The lawsuit included requests for temporary injunctions to prevent further disposal of Armstrong's assets. The Wilsons argued that without court intervention, the defendants might continue to hide or misuse Armstrong's funds, jeopardizing their ability to collect damages from the wrongful death judgment. Randy Howry, the attorney representing the Wilson family, emphasized that the main goal of the lawsuit was not to seek excessive financial compensation, but to ensure that Armstrong and her family did not profit financially from their actions. He stated, "What they're interested in is making sure that Kaitlin doesn't financially benefit, nor does her family financially benefit because of the actions of Kaitlin Armstrong." The Wilson family aimed to hold Armstrong accountable for her actions and ensure that any financial gains her family had made through the fraudulent transfers would be recovered from them. At the time of the latest updates, Armstrong, her mother, sister, and Strickland had no attorneys listed as representing them in the lawsuit. This lack of legal representation could complicate proceedings as the Wilson family seeks to enforce their claims. The fraudulent transfer lawsuit reflects the ongoing efforts of the Wilson family to navigate the legal landscape following their daughter's tragic death. It underscores their determination to seek justice and prevent any financial gain by Armstrong and her collaborators due to her criminal actions. Anna Moriah Wilson's parents, Eric and Karen Wilson, have played a significant role in the aftermath of their daughter's tragic murder. Here is a detailed overview of their backgrounds, involvement in the case, and efforts to honor their daughter's legacy. Eric Wilson is a former member of the U.S. ski team and has a strong athletic background. He served on the board of Kingdom Trails, a mountain biking organization in Vermont, aligning with the family's commitment to promoting cycling and outdoor sports. His experience as an athlete and coach heavily influenced his family's athletic pursuits. Karen Wilson is a cycling instructor at KCNE Adventures, demonstrating her passion for cycling and outdoor activities. She has been actively involved in the cycling community, reflecting the family's commitment to sports and physical fitness. The Wilsons have another child, Matthew Wilson, who has also been affected by the loss of his sister. The family is closely connected and shares a strong bond through their love of sports and outdoor activities. Following Anna Moriah Wilson's murder on May 11, 2022, both Eric and Karen Wilson have become vocal advocates for justice. They have publicly expressed their grief and worked to ensure their daughter's story is told, highlighting her achievements and the impact of her loss on their family. During the legal proceedings, both Eric and Karen Wilson have provided emotional statements about their daughter's life and the impact of her murder. They have described the profound loss they feel and the void created in their lives. Karen Wilson expressed that learning of Mariah's death was the worst moment of her life, and she has shared her desire to fight for justice on behalf of her daughter. The Wilsons have received widespread support from the cycling community and beyond, with many individuals and organizations coming together to honor Mariah's memory. The Pretty Ride Like Mo campaign emerged as a way for cyclists to pay tribute to her legacy by encouraging others to participate in cycling events and promote safe riding practices. Eric and Karen Wilson have shown remarkable resilience in the face of their daughter's tragic murder. Their pursuit of justice, involvement in legal proceedings, and efforts to establish a foundation in Mariah's memory reflect their commitment to honoring her legacy and supporting the cycling community. Through their actions, they continue to inspire others and ensure that Anna Moriah Wilson's story and influence will not be forgotten. The case of Anna Moriah Wilson reminds us of the fragility of life and the unpredictable paths it can take. It shows us the darkest aspects of human emotions, but also the power of community and collective remembrance. Above all, it tells the story of a young woman who, in her brief time on this earth, left a lasting impression, not just through her athletic achievements, but through her character, passion, and unwavering spirit.